Welcome back and hello if you are new. I hope all of you are having a fantastic bank holiday weekend for those who are in the UK, and for everyone else, I hope you're just having a great time too. Following 2016's dystopia, Megadeth are finally back with a rip-roaring brand new thrash metal record in the form of The Sick, The Dying and The Dead. When you least expect your fate, I attack. If you're not familiar with Megadeth, they are essentially thrash metal royalty and will be celebrating their 40th anniversary next year. Of all the big four, Megadeth was my personal favourite. They were the tightest, the fastest and the most technical. They've gone through a hell of a lot of lineup changes throughout the years, but the main sort of constant, I guess, of Megadeth has been Dave Mustaine. This actually marks the longest period between two Megadeth albums in the band's career, which is 6 years. Now, initially the lineup for this record was going to be David Ellefson, Kiko Loureiro and Dirk Verbeuren. However, because of a certain incident that Ellefson got himself into, his bass parts essentially were retracked by the bass god that is Steve DiGiorgio. Of course, Kiko and Dirk Verbeuren also appear on this album, and this is the first time that Dirk is actually going to be on a recorded Megadeth release. This record may not necessarily be a concept album, but it does have some kind of themes, I guess, which ties in with The Sick, The Dying and The Dead. So we've got Black Ops in terms of, like army veterans and things like that. Psychopaths, we've got the Lost Dogs of Chernobyl and kind of all the abandoned animals, really. And then we've also got a mission to Mars that's gone awry, The Plague. There's lots of different things to kind of glean from this album. Each song on this record is very much kind of theatric, I think. And they've all got these kind of cool little intros, be it the radioactive beginning of Dogs of Chernobyl, which has, sort of like the clicking of radiation and sort of soundscapes, or the Bring Out Your Dead. There's even helicopters on the beginning of Night Stalker, to show that it's this kind of like Black Ops, stealth Marines kind of thing going on. Concealed in the night. The doubleheader of Psychopathy into Killing Time is great too. The first being a little segment of Dave Mustaine kind of talking about psychopathic tendencies, and the second almost being like a serial killer egging someone on. At least that's what I kind of took from it. I also love the fact that Dave kind of does all of the sound bites himself and gives it kind of a DIY quality to it, especially when he becomes an astronaut and also kind of like his own version of NASA on mission to Mars. Ice-T also appears on Night Stalkers for a cool little guest spot, which kind of adds a little bit of flavouring, which I kind of liked. Now, where the playing is concerned, of course thrash metal is the order of the day, but I think there's kind of a bit of a classic rock thing kind of going on with some of the songs on this record. The Sick, The Dying, The Dead and Mission to Mars, I think, has that classic rock vibe happening, but then there's definitely a classic sense of Megadeth, which reminded me a little bit of like High Speed Dirt on Celebutant. Some tracks also have two sides to them, which kind of make you think, well, how did I end up going from there all the way to here? But I kind of like that. It takes you on a bit of a journey. We'll Be Back is a great example of that. After a flurry of solos, kind of like trade-offs reminiscent of Hangar 18 kind of stuff, we go into this really kind of like locked in groove, which I really liked. And that's kind of like the two different sides of the coin, I guess. Choruses are also incredibly well put together, and despite what I thought was quite a bit of a cheesy introduction on Junkie, it's become one of my favourite songs on the album, and the chorus just gets straight into your head. Not to mention that Psychopathy, I think, has tendencies which were seen on Countdown to Extinction, of that sort of like descending kind of individual lead playing, but kind of coupling it together with the chorus to make it even more memorable. Now, lyrics and vocals, I think, have always been a really key part of Megadeth's sound. There are little things in the vocals, I think, that make this record more memorable than a lot. The Sick, The Dying and The Dead, for example, has this bit where he's like, yeah, which I know it sounds weird, but the more you listen to it, the more you're kind of like, oh yeah, I get that, that's cool. I also think it's got that signature Dave Mustaine snarl about it. It sounds pissed off, and he's pretty much omnipresent throughout the entire listen here. One of my favourite sections, I think, is the latter bit of Dogs of Chernobyl, which kind of, it gets faster and faster and faster and has that same sort of delivery that he had in Endgame, for example. There are moments when transitions are very seamless, like in Dogs of Chernobyl and also from Psychopathy into Killing Time. But there's also kind of moments where it sort of falls apart a little bit, like Night Stalkers, I thought, and Soldier On. There were kind of moments where I was like, is the track finished? Is it kind of starting again? What's kind of happening here? Now, of course, a Megadeth record wouldn't be complete without absolutely searing solos, and there are some fantastic ones on display here. It's still very much the biggest selling point, I think personally, of Megadeth's sound, and Dave and Kiko's unmistakable styles can be seen throughout here. But there's one particular sort of standout solo, I think, which is Sacrifice, and for me it redeems the song completely, because I thought the verse wasn't necessarily that great, but when that solo comes in, I think it's kind of a Kiko special from what it sounds like. It's a really, really brilliant song, and then the end of Celebutant as well has a really sort of like tight, really locked in, nice, fast solo. But I also like the fact that solos can be a set piece, like we saw on We'll Be Back, which is, you know, kind of like just smashing them out one after the other. But it can also embellish a certain segment of the song, like on Junkie, which is just kind of like, you know, it's almost like a bluesy kind of thing, really, because it just kind of slowly moves the verse along. As a massive Megadeth fanboy, I also love the fact that on Mission to Mars, there's reference of Rust in Peace. I also kind of dig the fact that the sick, the dead, and the dying is very reminiscent of So Far, So Good, So What. You know, there's lots of little kind of nods, which I think big old fans of Megadeth will get a kick out of on this record. Overall, I think the only downside to this record might be the production. There were some times where I thought it was a little bit flat and it left me kind of wanting a little bit more oomph. The levels in Life in Hell and the beginning of Soldier On also are a bit weird. Life in Hell kind of is a bit too low, and then Soldier On sounds quite tinny. Thankfully though, it doesn't affect the impact of the songwriting all that much. No reason left for living. The Sick, the Dying, and the Dead is a really fun record, and it's kind of got this charmingly cheesy vibe about it, and it had me grinning from ear to ear more than a couple of times. You can really tell that this is a labour of love, and you know, the themes, the little sort of intros here and there, it's just those little details that I think, you know, fans will actually really dig. I also think that post-Euthanasia, there have been some standout songs on Megadeth albums, but it's not necessarily been an out-and-out fantastic record. And I think that The Sick, The Dying, and The Dead might just change that. It might not rewrite the rulebook for metal, but it's a thumping good chapter in Megadeth's history. So thank you ever so much for checking this out. I hope you enjoyed it and you learned a little bit more about Megadeth's brand new album. Let me know what you think of it in the comments below. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you on another video very, very soon.